Well, Christmas is coming up, and I wanted to make some rubber band guns for the grandkids when they come over on Christmas Day to play with. So I started looking around. I want something simple. So the good old standby is just to stick with a clothespin, but that wasn't quite fancy enough. So I decided to make a few prototypes to see what I wanted. The next one is I made with paint sticks. They're glued together, and I made even a little trigger mechanism here that lifts up the rubber band on the back. But I think this is too complicated and it's a little lightweight, it might break. So the next one I made is out of solid wood, and I made a trigger that pokes up through here, or actually, yeah, it takes a rubber band right here and the trigger pulls down the little metal tab and the rubber band shoots off. But again, this is kind of crude. I don't think this is very sustainable. The kids play with it. So I decided to just go with something simple. So I drew out on a piece of cardboard here the shape that I think I want, and I prototyped one up. This is what it's going to look like, and it's going to be just a simple clothespin gun. All the edges are smoothed off with a router, and I've routed down here so it kind of has a different profile where the rubber band fits around, and it has a little hole, like almost like a trigger hole, that you can put your finger in, and you can just use your thumb to press down on the clothespin. And this ought to work. I made it kind of small because they're kids and they have smaller hands. So anyway, I'm going to trace out a couple of these and then start making them. So I'll show you how I do it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and trace out two of these and cut this off so it's easier to work with on the scroll saw. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay this template down and trace around it. Give a nice dark line to cut across or cut along. And I've got the center hole marked here for where it drills, you know, for the finger hole. Okay, there's one. I'll flip it over and do another one that's just opposite of that. In this cardboard template, I just cut it out again, just like I did on my leather projects, out of a cereal box, and I did a couple of them to get to the final design that I wanted. This happened to be a Cheerios box. Okay, so I've got that there. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off in the radial arm saw to this length. I forgot to mark the center hole in this one for the finger hole. Okay, next thing is I'm going to go ahead and drill the finger hole while it's still one piece, so it's less likely to break out this thin spot here. Okay, I've moved over to the drill press and we're going to drill the holes. I've already preset this to the right depth to drill through, and I'm using a 1-inch spade bit. Okay, there's trigger holes. The next thing I'm going to do is cut the flutes on the top of this barrel here. I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but I'm going to cut these flutes here. One of them is going to be real easy, but the other one will be a little more difficult. So I've already marked where that flute stops on here with this little pencil mark here. And I'm going to line up where the edge of this bit is, because it's already set to the right height, and I'm going to clamp a block in place so I can route down to that spot. Okay, now this tool's a lot noisier. There you can see how that looks, how it cut that edge. So I'll do the other. I've done this one, now I'm going to do this one. This side cut a little cleaner. This side here is a little bit of tear out, but that'll sand out nicely. So now the other side is, I'm going to have to do the other side, but I'm going to have to do it backwards. So I'm going to put the stop on this side now and back out of it. I'm going to have to put it in and back out. So again, I'm going to mark that spot. So I'm just looking across and eyeballing it where it lines up. I'm looking at the edge of the bit here where it hits, which is right about there. Put this block into place. And this is my homemade router table that I made many years ago. It's made out of oak, and it has a material on top that's like real heavy Formica, high pressure plastic laminate. It's about, well, you can see how thick it is, about a 1/4 inch thick. Okay, needs to back off just a little bit. Looks fairly close. Let's try it. I may have to do an adjustment. about 1/8 of an inch off. So I'm just going to back this block up a little bit. About like that. Pretty close. So now you can see the profile. Okay, so I'll do the other side. I had to stop it. There's some sawdust in the corner that's blocking this. Okay, they're both done. The next part is the scroll work. Or actually, maybe I'll go ahead and round these holes too, or round over the edge, since they're still all together, and I won't break this out after it's cut and it's thin. Before I get this all set up, I wanted to show you, this was the bit I used to make that flute. So it actually used this edge here to cut down, and then it rounded it over. You can see it here. So it went like this. The next one is just gonna be a 1/4 inch radius round over bit with a bearing, so I won't have to use the fence to hold it. I'll just run the bearing around the hole. So let me get this set up. And when I change these bits, normally I unplug the router bit, so there's no chance that this thing can come on while I'm holding this bit. I generally like to raise the bit up so it's not fully seated. I like to raise it up just slightly so that if there's any radius on the edge of the shaft there, it doesn't get stuck and offset the bit or tilt it one way or the other. Okay, so I think I'm going to have to take off this fence too to get more space. So I'm just going to disconnect one edge here. Back. Now, the next thing I want to do is lower the bit down so that it just rounds over. It doesn't cut into the edge with that sharp corner. That's about right. And I'm just going to test it on one of these back corners here just to see how it does. Oops, gotta plug it back in. Good. So I'll go ahead and round over the holes. See how that looks rounded over? Okay, so the next task is to go ahead and cut these out on the scroll saw. Okay, here we go. Okay, it's roughed out. I'm going to go ahead and sand at least the straighter edges here with a belt sander a little bit, because they're not perfect. Scroll saw cutting something this thick tends to wander a little bit. So let me get the belt sander set up. Okay, I've just got a regular belt sander here. I'm just going to set it on this pad and hold it with my left hand and sand it with my right. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now I'll go back to the router and round off all the other edges with the round over bit. Okay, that rounded the edges. I think on my prototype, yeah, I rounded the other top edges down to here as well, so I got to do that. Okay, they're all rounded, and it's ready to go to the next step.